How's it going, everybody? Onan here, doing kind of a last minute live stream, although with this one I did schedule it a couple of hours ago. Um, I apologize in advance if the audio quality is not great. Um, I'm out of state for work, so I'm in a hotel, and all I brought along was my MacBook, and I don't have my good mic system with me. I thought I had packed my one good portable wireless mic, but I must have left that at home. So you're just going to have to go with the MacBook mic for today. Hope everyone's doing well. I been kind of paying attention to the fires out in California. Sounds like it's been a pretty bad deal out there. I think we have a few of our followers out there in uh, California, so I hope you guys are okay. Um, Hopefully, my son's okay. He's out there stationed in Southern California. We're hoping to see him next weekend. I guess in 2 weekends from now when we go out to Arizona. So, hope everyone's good out there. Let me know how everybody's doing this evening. I just have some time in the hotel. Um, Came out yesterday for work and had some work today here. I'm in the southeast part of the country, and then I fly out early tomorrow morning back home, and then I have about a week, and then I go. Like I said, my wife and I go to Arizona for a much overdue time away without any kids. This will be our first time without kids with us since we got married over 20 years ago. So keeping a close eye on the Marquette calendar to see whether we get to play or not. So keeping our fingers crossed there. But what I wanted to talk about tonight is something I came on my radar a few days ago. One of our good friend Christopher West's videos showed up, and it really um, grinds my gears because I hear it all the time in Catholic circles, and this is true in what I would say theology, the body circles, like the Christopher West of the world. It also is in the old, let's say, our buddy John Farrell's of the world, the old school folks. They all say the same thing that who's ever said, yeah, you don't just scratch every itch. Always in reference to any time people complain or raise questions about sexual teachings, no contraception, the difficulties of abstinence, and all that, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of how understandable and justifiable the situation is. Maybe the couple, maybe for the couple, pregnancy would truly be life threatening. Doesn't matter. They have one tool in the toolbox, and it's the same thing. You just got to control your passion. You can't be a slave to your desires. All that kind of nonsense. So I'm going to play a little bit of um, Christopher West. I'll probably just put the. Well, let's see. I want to make sure you can hear it. I'm going to go ahead and try to play it. Maybe I should just put the whole video up. Let me see here. Bear with me. Let's see here. You'll probably see me briefly. I'll go ahead and put this full screen. You guys should be able to hear it. So now I got to go find it. I have a whole bunch of screens here. There we go. I apologize if there is an ad here. I don't have the ad free on this. Okay. So that whole stuff, what I don't like, did you see the false choices that he presented? You are either an addict, you're indulging in every impulse, never saying no to your desires, or you have complete mastery over yourself. You can go indefinitely, if necessary, without sexual intimacy. And he presents as those are the two choices. And that anyone who can't be master, absolute perfect master of their, bodily actions, he offers no middle ground. And I don't know if that's purposeful or accidental, but it's complete nonsense. And I think it says more about Christopher West than it does about the rest of us. I mean, he doesn't really hide this. He had some very severe sexual addictions early in life, porn addictions. I've actually seen this a lot as I've been doing this, and a lot of people come into my life. The people that I've found that are the most fervently, um, let's say, in favor of, let's say, the traditional views or the very rigid views, tend to have a history of true sexual addiction, often a porn addiction. Um, I'm not here to say that I'm immune from any of that, but it's just not something I've ever dealt with on any kind of level that I thought, where I was out of control, and just never have had that. And I think for most people, most guys, they can operate in such a way that they're not incapacitated addicts. Um, and so I really dislike how they present anyone who says, you know what, the call to abstinence for, whether it's NFP or whatever, is too much. He automatically puts you into this category that you're a slave to your passions. And I think that's wrong. I think that is inaccurate, and I think it's probably purposely misleading. Now think about this. Think about and I don't mean to be silly about it, but I think we tend to very easily not give ourselves enough credit for what we do right. Um, it, I I mean I'm getting up there in years, but I'm still a pretty healthy viral man. And if I could have my way, I'd have sex with my wife every single day, probably multiple times a day. If I was truly just giving in or surrendering to my every sexual urge, I could very easily do that every single day. But I don't. I'm constantly saying no to my urges because it's not practical. Once you have kids, once you have children, by default, you are giving up the freedom and the license, to use his language, to indulge your desires anytime you want. You are not, you are already sacrificing all of that, to become parents. Whether you have one child or 9 children, you are by definition surrendering your ability to do what and when you want when it comes to intimacy. And I think we should stop just overlooking that as being unimportant and irrelevant. I think they just take that for granted. But even then, so for all of us, I doubt that there's anyone that listens to this show, anyone that sits in the church pew that gets to have their sexual desires satisfied completely and totally. Maybe that is more so for men than women, but most of us don't get those our needs satisfied all the time. But most of us are able to exercise the necessary restraint not to go out and have an affair, not to go visit a prostitute, not to engage in pornography, not to be hounding our spouse every single day or every other day or whatever the case may be. Most of us are not doing that and are in effect masters of ourselves, and that we are able to overcome those base urges that if we had our way we might do all of those things or some of those things. And so this idea that anytime that this idea that every restraint placed on the desire for sexual intimacy is the same is ridiculous. Imagine this scenario. You have a married couple. Let's say the husband is an over the road trucker and he's gone for a week. And he comes home and they have 2 days together. But because for one reason or another they really can't get pregnant or shouldn't get pregnant, and they happen to fall outside that brief infertile window, and they can't engage in it, unless they were going to use contraception or other acts or something like that. By the time he comes back the next weekend, they're going to be in the fertile time again, and so it's foreseeable that they won't have an opportunity to do anything for weeks or months, perhaps, depending on how things line up. Christopher West would listen to them and say the same thing. Wow, you can't scratch that itch. You got to be master of your domain. And if you dare think that you need to be able to be sexually intimate and that just skin to skin touching isn't good enough, you're just a slave to your passions. You're on the road to addiction. That's all nonsense. Like, right? Everyone understands that is complete and utter nonsense. And people are guilted into really people are made to feel worse about themselves than I think are really actually warranted under the circumstances, because most of us are not sex crazed maniacs in reality. Maybe in our minds we are, but in truth, most of us are exercising a fairly high level of restraint on our every impulse and really don't give ourselves credit for it and don't give each other credit for it. And I think that's a real problem for sort of the Christopher Wests of the world and those that are just very, very dismissive of what I think are legitimate and understandable concerns of people, good Catholic people trying to be faithful, probably welcoming children in their life, probably having larger than normal families, and making time for intimacy very difficult, if not impossible. And yet they're just dismissively treated as being, well, you just have to be master of your domain. I don't think that the couple that is dealing with the trucker situation and finds it, understandably desirable to be able to do something during the brief time they see each other is in any way near a sexual addict or someone that is a slave to their passions. Nor do I think they should be dismissed for having those struggles. Now, I'm not here to say what they should or shouldn't do during that time, but I think the really grotesque dismissal of those people and lumping them into the same category as people that truly are out of control, truly have no um, self-control over themselves and are constantly hounding their spouses. I think to lump those all together is really gross and really does a disservice, I think, to the church. It's certainly not helping good Catholic couples struggling with this stuff in reality. And I don't know that they if they understand that or not, but the it's the reality of the situation. So um I just every time I hear that, in this whole concept of it's an itch, don't scratch it. You ever just stop and think about that for a moment? How many of us don't scratch an itch, right? And why would you? Like what? Like maybe there's some Zen like master in the desert who says, "I'm going to not put my hand over my back and put my fingernails into that dry, itchy part of my back and scratch that." No one does that. No one's expected to not do that. Your body is telling you something. And so it's such a strange thing to say when literally no one decides not to scratch an itch. I don't think it's really a good comparison at all because this is much more than an itch. And most of us, as I indicated above, unconsciously say no to our sexual impulses all the time, probably every single day. And when you are raising children and you're trying to go to work and make the world better, and you're in maybe there's sickness and things like that or work, you're you're constantly saying no to your sexual impulses, which are, for most of us is like, I would like to be with my spouse in that way. There's few things, really no things that compare to it. And so we constantly say no to ourselves, and yet it's never good enough, right? It's never good enough for the Christopher Wests of the world. And so that is where I think they do a real disservice to the conversations that need to happen, the ministry that needs to happen in the church. Um, we need to be able to offer a realistic and attractive alternative to the world, to, let's say, the contraceptive world. If that's truly what we want to do, and that I'm all on board. I've made it very clear. Anytime I've given an opportunity, I say I don't think contraception is the answer. I understand. I'm sympathetic to those that do it. I'm sympathetic to the arguments against the teaching, but I'm also very much aware of the possible problems that it can create, and I believe that it would not be a good thing for my own marriage. However, um, to be very much in this very rigorous NFP world, or the old traditionalist world where you either had to be completely continent or always engaging, none of that is a realistic alternative to what contraception offers people, and we should stop pretending like it is. And that's why I do this podcast. That's why I have the other show, because I think I think we as Catholics have an opportunity to present a truly holistic, reverent, and loving option for people that is not easy, but it's also achievable for most people. I don't think what Christopher West espouses is achievable for the vast majority of people. And most of us, myself included, will not be able to follow his approach and are going to have to deal with the frustration or guilt or whatever your reaction is to the fact that that is just not realistic. Or if you're able to follow it, enduring what I think are some very real and foreseeable harms to the marriage, to the family, to the children by following these very, very extreme approaches. And yes, I consider Christopher West extreme, no less extreme than the traditionalists of the world, but for very different reasons. And but as long as he's going to go out and say what he says and basically lump everyone into the category of sexual addicts and slaves to their passions because they don't endorse his viewpoint 100%, I think we are missing many opportunities to present a very wholesome, holistic, and Christ-like approach to marriage and chastity that no one else has to offer. But we have to get over this nonsense, these cliches, these ridiculous platitudes that these guys promote and impose upon people. So that was my that's my rant. That's all of the video that I've watched. I haven't watched the rest of the video. Maybe I'll do so later on. If people watch the rest of the video and have comments, drop them in the comments below. How are you guys doing tonight? I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, but I wanted to give you guys a chance to say anything in the comments. Am I wrong? Do you agree with Christopher West? I don't know. The longer I do this, the older I get, the more years I've been married, the more cycles we go through, the more and more convinced I am of my approach, and the more skeptical I am of the Christopher West theology, the body approach. I think it has some things it gets very good, and I'll recognize that, I'll acknowledge that, but some of these things it gets very wrong, and I think it can very quickly undo all of the good that theology, the body, and traditional church teaching has to offer the world, offer marriages, to foster true sacrificial, loving marriages that are open to life and good environments to raise children. We're close, but some of these things I think are just so detrimental to the whole narrative that they just undo so much good, and they really need to confront this and be honest and humble about it. So anyway, that's all I had to say on the matter. I'll go ahead and wrap this up. If people have any questions or thoughts, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll respond to them when I can. It's going to be a little bit crazy for me for the next few days. Actually, the next week and a half are going to be a little crazy for me, but feel free to leave a comment if you want, or send me an email, whatever. But appreciate anyone who showed up for this. And so till next time, everyone, have a good one.